Okay, so it's good. I don't know who else is going to join us. It's kind of, I realize, so it's Wednesday, it is Passover week, and it's 6 o'clock, and it's dinner time for a lot of families right now. So we'll just go ahead. It's good to see the people that are on. I see Sean's face, I see Sandy's name, and I see Marie P. And I'm not sure if I know who Marie P is. Marie, hi.
Hi, Dr. Susan. It's Marie.
Oh, Marie, now I know you're, it says Marie P, so I wasn't sure who the P was. Now I
Yeah,
know.
yeah, sorry about that.
That's
I
okay.
know.
Okay, great. Oh, it's good to see you or see your name and hear your voice. Okay. So, welcome tonight, and just want to thank you all for being here. And tonight's topic is how to find peace when our leaders are at war, tools for keeping the peace in your relationships. And how this topic came about for me was that although I am trying to limit how much exposure I get to the news, I still do read. And it was hard to miss this week what went on from the top down. There was a lot of conflict that was seemed to be escalating. I mean, there's always a lot of conflict for the past couple of years, well, maybe forever, there's been governmental and political conflict. But within this crisis right now, given all that's happening when people are coming together to try to meet the needs of what's going on in this emergency pandemic situation, there seem to be distractions on governmental levels. And we saw it in New York. For those of you that are in New York, we saw it between the mayor and the governor. And then it became increased between the president and all of the governors and really the whole country. And although I don't believe in trickle down theory economically, but that's a whole nother discussion. We're not going to get into it now. I actually do believe in the trickle down theory when it comes to psychology and relationships and the way that we are as humans. And for those of you that may know from a neuroscience perspective, we have what's called mirror neurons. And they're actually neurons, and their entire function is to have us copy others, to mirror others. And so I was thinking as I was listening and watching this week, gee, how is this impacting on people in their homes? When we're looking for leaders to really make us feel safe during this uncertain time, how is their behavior impacting on us individually as well as in our relationships? So that was the introduction to what my talk is going to be about. And I'm going to provide some tools that I think can really be helpful to people in terms of how to find peace within their relationships, which really starts within you. So it starts within us in terms of finding the peace. And for those of you that have been on before, you know I like to start with a centering exercise just to kind of allow us to all be here together. So what I'm going to do is a breathing exercise, and you can close your eyes or not. And I'm just going to ask you to just take a few deep breaths. And I'm just going to look away from the camera when I do this. So if you could just take one deep breath in through your nose and then out through your mouth. And then in through your nose, and then out through your mouth. Another deep breath in through your nose, and out through your mouth. And you've all come from different places, and there was a lot going on, and some of you are managing a lot of different things and a lot of different roles, and keep breathing. And as you breathe, you want to let it all go. As much as you can, just leave where you were today, just leave it there. And really allow yourself to be here and really congratulate yourself because you have given to yourself this gift of taking care of you for the next 30 minutes, 35 minutes, however long we have tonight together. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to just focus on yourself because so many of you are just focusing on so many other things. And so, you know, we want to be here. So it may be that lots of things come in rather into your mind while you're here and focusing, and it's okay. You can just let it go and just really refocus. And we call it, sometimes people will say, we just, in meditation, we begin again. And so you can just refocus again. So let's just take another couple of breaths. In through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Okay, open your eyes. If you close them, just become aware of the room again and aware of our meeting together. Okay. And so again, just to repeat what we're going to be talking about tonight, and I'm going to leave, you can feel free if you have any questions at all, you can just unmute or you can put it in the chat space. If anybody doesn't know how to use Zoom, just let me know and I can teach you. But you can also put a question or your name in the chat space. But I will be leaving some time at the end for Q&As. Okay. So it was very interesting because, you know, you can't make this up. And I'm really not making this up. This actually happened this morning. So I wake up early this morning and I have a full day of work scheduled, patients and lots of different meetings. And I said, okay, I'm going to just work on my presentation for tonight. So it was very quiet. It was very early. And I like index cards. I took my index cards and I start writing. And it's literally, as soon as I start writing, I hear really loud noise coming from my upstairs neighbors. They're actually up there above me and next to me. And there's a couple who occasionally actually has these loud arguments. I haven't heard them in a while actually get into this huge fight. But of all the times that they proceed to have a huge argument is literally while I'm preparing for tonight in terms of how to find the peace and keep the peace in your relationships. Like, I was like, this is unbelievable. Now, the first thing that happened was I'm like, how could this be happening that I'm writing about this? And they are screaming really loud. Like it was really quite disturbing. And so the first thing I did was, besides going, oh my God, I can't believe this is like almost perfect for my writing, but like I realized what was happening to me. And for me, I was having a visceral response and my heart was racing and my stomach was starting to bother me and I could feel it because when I hear people yelling at each other, I mean, this was really loud. I have a visceral reaction like many of us do because it's a fear response, right? And so I started paying attention to what was going on with me physiologically, like, wow, this is really disturbing. And I acknowledged it to myself. And then I went, well, what I'm going to do is I want to use this to really key in for what I want to talk about later and all the concepts that I have in my head. And I sat back and I was just listening and I was listening and I'm thinking, you know, here's a couple of things that are going on with them. Number one, they're screaming at each other, but they can't possibly hear each other. There's no way. And we know this. Some of you might have been screamed at. Some of you do the screaming. We know that when we are yelling and the louder we get, the less the other person can hear us or the less you can hear the other person screaming, right? Does everybody agree? For those of you that I can see your faces, yes? So I'm thinking, wow, these two people are screaming at the top of their lungs. It almost sounded violent, like it was so loud, and they can't hear each other. So not only can they not hear themselves during this argument, they can't hear each other, and they can't hear themselves. There is no way that one knows what's going on inside oneself when you're yelling that loud. So there's a couple of things. One, they're yelling to be heard. The other person's not hearing them. They're trying to get a message across, but they have completely, when you're in that mode, you don't know what you're even saying because you've lost it. And then the other thing is that you really don't know what you need when you're in that mode. So by now, these two people are screaming at each other. They're in need of something. They can't possibly know what they're in need of because they're just going at it. And in this particular situation, both of them had that same reaction. So when I work with couples, I call it the 2-year-old in them comes out because it's tantrum. Now, sometimes people's tantrums are actually active and loud. And in this particular couple upstairs, they were both loud. Sometimes in couples, excuse me, when one person is loud, the other person's style, to become a 2-year-old, their style is actually they retreat and they become quiet, and maybe they cross their arms and then they walk away. And that they have that 2-year-old that isn't going to get loud. They do a silent tantrum. So I'm listening, but in this particular case, it's both of them. And so when I work with couples, one of the things that I talk about is how they're becoming 2-year-olds in that moment. And when one person says something, it triggers, and they're acting like a 2-year-old, right? And we've all done this. We've all acted like a 2-year-old. I've done it, you've done it, probably everybody on this call. As an adult, something triggers us, whether it's from internally, whether it's from somebody else doing something, whether we misinterpreted something that somebody said. Maybe it's that mirror neuron working where we've seen somebody do something and we regress into 2-year-old behavior, whatever that is. Now, when you're in a relationship with someone, it could be a partner, it could be a child, it could be a parent, it could be a sibling, it could be a friend, it could be anybody. So when I say relationship, doesn't have to be a love relationship, it could be any kind of love. So when one person acts like a 2-year-old, it usually triggers the other person to then act like a 2-year-old. And so what happens? You have, like this morning, 2-year-olds fighting with each other. And so what we need to do is we want to stop that. Now, there have been a lot of different methods to do this. And there's some that are very popular right now. I'm going to name a few, but I don't know. I have this thing, I have to reinvent the wheel. I know, like, we're always told, don't reinvent the wheel, just use what's already there. But I just have a tendency, I think it's my creative side, is to reinvent the wheel. So I'm going to talk about a couple of different acronyms and a couple of different methods, but then I'm going to talk about one that I actually use and have developed. So the first one that is very popular in the Buddhist world, and it was first started by Michelle McDonald, and it's called RAIN. And Tara Birch really has made it popular, and that is RAIN. So it's RIAN. Has anybody ever heard of this? I know she's been talking about this a lot lately. So we want to recognize what's happening. That's the R. The A is allow it to just be. The I is to investigate an inner experience with kindness. And the N stands for non-identification, which is we don't identify with that. Now, I'm just going to go over some of these. Then I'm going to go through mine. And if anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about the ones that I'm mentioning, please feel free to either ask me during the Q&A, or I can let you know at another time. So the first one is RAIN that you might have heard of. Another one is called THINK. And it's THINK. Is it truthful? Is it helpful? Is it insightful? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Another method that's used, an acronym, is the SELF. They're all pretty much doing the same thing. And again, I'm going to get more into this in detail. SELF would be serenity, exercise, love, and food. And then the last one is RELAX, RELAX, and I apologize for not having a PowerPoint on these, but again, I can certainly send you these. So RELAX would stand for recognize, eliminate, let go, attitude, and the X is for extra sleep. So the one that I had to reinvent, using a word that I think is kind of popular today, although I don't know, maybe it's outdated, but I think people still use this word. The acronym that I'm going to use and talk about is SNAP. Because, you know, and I think I like it for two reasons. One is, like, you hear people say, oh, snap, right? It's like a reaction, oh, snap. And the other is that we snap. When this happens and we regress to 2-year-old behavior, we like our snapping. When I heard those people this morning, the couple upstairs, they snapped. They sounded like they just snapped. They were gone. And just to follow up with that, the only way it ended, because it was so loud that I can hear this, is that one had to leave. because they were so escalated that, and I don't know which person left, but one of them actually left and slammed the door. And that's how that subsided this morning. So what does SNAP stand for? Now, I did, you probably, really my handwriting is not so great, but I'm going to show it to you. SNAP, I don't think you can probably read that, but the S stands for stop, the N stands for name, the A stands for accept, and the P stands for plan. And I'm going to go through each of these. SNAP, S-N-A-P. So the first thing is, let me just go back and say one thing. At the beginning, I talked about the topic. And it's, if we can just remember that the purpose of this is how to find peace, right, at a time when our leaders are at war, and also how to maintain or create peace in your relationships. And where do we find peace? We find peace, it starts within us. Each of you individually, that's where it starts. Because you can't have peace in a relationship unless you have peace within you. And so what this will do is when we're not at peace, when we are triggered, when we are reacting, and even if it's okay to react and it makes sense, we want to respond instead of reacting. And I make that distinction because when I talk about reacting, it is that 2-year-old behavior, whereas when we respond, we're coming from a place that's not just a reactive instinctual place. Okay, so I wanted to make that distinction. So let's go back to the acronym SNAP. So the first thing we want to do when we're triggered and we're not in peace is we want to just stop. We want to stop. It could be the way that we're feeling. It could be the way somebody else just made us feel. Somebody says something, well, like right away, like, oh my God, like how, I'm going to react. Well, no. We want to first stop. Just stop. And you want to think, what is it that is going on with me? So before you react, you want to say to yourself, what's happening? Let me just not answer that. Let me not go and say this. Let me not go and do this or request this. Let me not write that text, because maybe right now it's over texted with someone that's far away that you can't be with right now, because this also happens through this medium, or it happens through texting. So we want to stop. We don't want to react. And when we stop, we want to think about what is happening. What's going on? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? And the next thing is N. We want to name it. And I recommend that we name it for several reasons. Studies have shown that when we give something a name, it gives it less power. We actually can get more control over things when we put a name on it. So we stop, we then think about what is going on with me right now. What is happening? What am I feeling? And usually it's multi-level. Usually in this particular case, when we're at war or we're reacting or we're become a 2-year-old, we are angry. A lot of times we are angry and we are reacting from anger. And we want to stop and say, okay, name it. I'm angry right now. Usually there's something else underneath the anger. And you want to go and think, okay, well, what's underneath that? Why am I angry? What's happening? Why am I angry? Well, that person just accused me of something, and I don't like being wrongly accused. Or that person said something that hurt me. Or maybe it's coming from a fear. Maybe you're afraid that someone's going to leave you. Usually when we're anger, I heard this, well, it's also anxiety, but maybe I'm feeling anxious. And maybe there's something underneath the anxiety. What's underneath it? What's underneath the anger? So you can name the feeling that's on top, anger, anxiety. Then go another level and say, okay, you name it, and what's underneath that? What else could I be feeling? And once, again, you give it a name, you might want to try this right now for a second. Maybe something happened today or yesterday, even if it was mild, that you found yourself reacting to. Just, you don't have to say it out loud. Maybe just go and think about, was there something that you felt yourself reacting to today? Could have been something on the news. It could have been that you read something, you had a reaction, and you didn't quite know what it was. Well, stop for a moment and think about, now really think about what was that? What was that feeling that you had? Everybody have one? For those of you that I can see, do you have one? If you have one, can you nod? I see one person nodding. Okay. Now go and think about what else were you feeling? What might be behind that initial feeling that you had on top? Okay. Think a little bit more and name that. And it makes more sense now, right? Maybe it makes a little bit more sense in terms of the multi-dimension of that reaction that you're having. And so you name it. And now you have names for it. And so the next thing is acceptance. In SNAP, it's S-N-A-P. We're up to A. And you want to just accept that, okay, this is the way I'm feeling. This is right now what is going on with me. And this is how I'm feeling. You got to watch the voices at this point in terms of your self-judgments on yourself. Because sometimes what happens and what we do is we now start to judge ourselves for feeling that way. We may either be blaming somebody else or we may be blaming ourselves for actually feeling that way. And so in this acceptance, we want to watch what's happening in the voices and what those voices are telling us. And we want to say, it's okay to feel this way. It's not okay to react on it, but it's okay to feel this way. So you got your feelings, you're saying it's okay. Now the last piece comes plan. Now, in order to come up with a plan, we need a little bit more information. And the other information that we need is, we accepted what we're experiencing. What is it that we need in this moment? What do we need? So in the making of the plan, we need to identify, what is it? What is it that we need? When I think about that couple, and if I just went into my own fantasy world about what might have been happening to them, maybe one of them was hurt by the other one. Maybe it is, in this particular case, it's a male and female. I'm going to just make this up. Maybe the male said something in a way that really hurt the female, and she misinterpreted or put meaning on something that he said that wasn't there, and she might have felt rejected or insulted and then got angry at it. And so now she's sitting with anger, she's sitting with hurt, and maybe what she needs to know is that he didn't mean what she thought it meant. Like, did he actually mean to insult her? Did what he said originally before the fight, and they both became 2-year-olds, did what she interpret his words to mean, did they mean that? Maybe she needs clarification. Maybe so the plan would be to clarify, this is what I heard, is that what you meant? Maybe she just needs to be heard. When you say that, I feel this way. And I don't want to feel this way, so please don't say that to me anymore. So the last piece is the planning piece. Again, and what the planning piece has to happen, what you have to do in the planning phase is to figure out what, you accepted what you're feeling, and now you want to plan because you have to figure out what is it that you need, and then come up with a plan on how you're going to meet that need. And so if you take care of you, and you go through the steps for yourself, you will be in a better position then in your relationship with either your partner, with your sibling, with your child, even with yourself. Because you can even do this with yourself, this applies. Because the most important relationship is the one that you have with yourself. I'm just going to look at my notes to see if I want to say anything else. Or if I left anything else out, and I think I covered that whole piece. So I'm going to open it up again for questions, comments, feedback, and if you don't have any, I have some questions that maybe you have, but you can either do it in the chat space, or you can just say your name, put your name in there. I don't know if you can unmute yourself. So did this make sense to people? Was it helpful? You could nod. You can say it wasn't, it's okay. Okay, I see movement. Anyone have any? Sean, you have a question?
Yeah, well, you talk about what to do if you're in a conflict situation like the people upstairs from you, and you say withdrawing is acting like a 2-year-old. I see it as sort of a de-escalation move, because if the person's yelling back isn't productive. And if you try to talk to them calmly, they keep yelling. I think just walking away wouldn't that be a good opportunity to just put things on hold?
Yeah, I think, I hear what you're saying, and part of that is really good. It depends on the relationship, because oftentimes one person is the aggressor. That's the wrong word. I'm going to change the word. One person is more of the pursuer, and one person is has the style of withdrawing. So their go-to might be when they're two, they react by screaming, whereas the other person withdraws. There's a difference between withdrawing to keep the peace, to not allow it to escalate, and to acknowledge the person, but maybe this isn't the time to discuss it. So let me give the example and explain that a little bit more. So if you're somebody, sometimes you might be somebody who likes to resolve the issue right away. Like you have a little bit of an argument and it's like, maybe you need to talk about it right then and there. Somebody else may have a style where they don't want to talk about it. They need the time to either reflect, to calm themselves down, to ponder it. Maybe they never want to talk about it. And so in these situations, what happens often is you have one person that has the need to express and discuss and process, and you have another person whose need is to actually get their own space, to be able to think, to be able to calm down in their own time. Now, what happens in these cases is that the one person who needs to talk will experience the person who's moving away as actually being more disrespected, and even more so not getting their needs met. So if the person doesn't acknowledge, right, like, oh, I know that you want to talk about this, but can we do it later? Like, I can't talk about this right now, but I hear that you want to, so let's talk about this later. So it's not, so you bring up a good point. You do want to de-escalate, but it really depends on what the other person's needs are, because sometimes just walking away, if the person needs validation, it actually escalates it even more. And we see this, and maybe you've seen it in your own, whatever relationship it is. Could have been with a parent, with a friend, with a sibling, with a child, where your style is just different. And you just have different needs, and it's not realizing that your need is different in the moment. So the person who has that need to, let's say, talk right now, and they may be not even able to talk, and the person who's quiet sees that. But if they just walk out of the room, that person is left feeling uncared about, and they escalate within themselves. So, with couples, I always say, we talk about this, both sides. Well, what do you need in that moment? And it's really an individual thing. It's not a one size fits all. And so the first thing would be, okay, if you're, let's say, the person who needs to talk about it and the other person is not ready, what do you need from them in that moment that will help you to wait? Maybe it's as simple as, I know you want to talk about it, so let's talk at 6 o'clock tonight. As opposed to just walking away. Because if you just walk away without acknowledging the person, and you just kind of stomp away like, I'm not talking to you now, and I've seen that because that happens. But sometimes it's just coming from a difference in style and a difference in needs. And so it's about identifying what the need is and what, and knowing yourself more. And it's a process, and I work with people on doing that in terms of realizing what their own needs are, and being able to articulate it in a way that the other person, first you have to acknowledge it within yourself. And, we're not born knowing how to do that. And our society and culture certainly does not teach us how to do that. And so coaching and therapy and different counseling in different ways and meditations can help in us learning what our style is and what our need is. Did that answer? Did that help, Sean? Yeah. So yeah, it was a good point. So I think it's really, it depends on the couple and what the need is. And this clearly, like walking out and slamming the door where like the house shook, was definitely in 2-year-old mode, and not in the mode of, okay, I'm gonna just remove myself so that we don't fight, and then we can talk about this later. That's not what happened. That did not sound like what happened earlier this morning. And hopefully they will both calm down, because these are two people who have the same style, because I can hear them both screaming. And so their needs are like probably similar. And neither one of them was able to just calm down enough and do what I, haven't taught them to do yet. Earl, any questions? Yeah, I see you're foggy. I see you foggy. No?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, no. I definitely, I've been in that situation, but it's about kind of knowing what you like how you need to communicate, like what your, because everybody has strengths and weaknesses in their form of communication and how they communicate. So it's knowing yourself, like as you said before, it's kind of knowing what your like how you need to function, and then letting the other person know what that is. Mm-hmm. So that I mean, like if somebody needs to talk later, it's just like, look, I have to think about this, but give me a minute. Maybe later on, like whatever time, in a couple hours, we'll talk about it again. But right now, I can't really get into it. So, or if the person needs to talk now, then the other person has to kind of let them know we'll talk later, because I can't really deal with this at this moment. But we will. You have to reassure them that you do want to talk about it, because some people will push it off and then not get around to it because they just don't want to talk about it at all. But that's not productive.
Yeah.
So,
And you can try this. If you want, remember the acronym SNAP, and it's stop, name, accept, and plan. And I can give you more information about it if you want it in a handout. But try it and let me know. What happens. Use it. And I think that just going back to why I did this in terms of with our leaders right now, is that, we all had different childhoods in terms of how we learn people deal with their feelings, whether it be anger, whether it be stress, whether it be anxiety. And we all get triggered. And so we want to be able to, let me just go back to something. A couple of weeks ago, I had talked to most of the way that we react and respond and the decisions that we make, about 80% of it, if not more, are unconscious. So we're not even aware most of the time of why we're making the choices that we make. So again, it could be that you're in a situation, and if you think about it this way, I'm sure most of you on this call have experienced this, because I know who's on the call and I see the ages. When you were younger, there were probably things that one or both parents or somebody did to you that you went, oh, I am never gonna do that. When I have kids, I am never gonna do that. And then you might, or a friendship, or like in a relationship, or to somebody. As an adult, I am never gonna say that. And then one day you go, oh my God, my so-and-so just took over my body, because I don't know where that came from. That wasn't my voice, that was my mother's voice. And, I've done it. I've heard myself, and I'm like, oh, stop, like that was not me, because I was in that crisis moment and I'm not thinking, I'm just reacting. It's unconscious. It's the lessons that we learn. And even though we say we're never going to do this, we find ourselves doing that. Does everybody experience that? Is this familiar to people? Yeah? Okay. So, Sandy, did you want to say something? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. In that situation, so I had a problem with a friend of mine a couple of months, or started talking now. Now what do I do? Do I ask why it took so long?
Wait, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Okay. So I had a problem with a friend of mine in that situation, where the person said, when I calm down, we'll talk. Well, it's been 2 months.
Wow, so it took them that long to calm down.
Yeah, so now what do I say? Do I just leave it like that? Or do I say, why did it take you? Do I ask the person?
Well, it's interesting. So for you, I mean, I guess you can talk about it or not. I don't know how personal you want to be, but the first thing would be is to say, what do I need? Meaning you. So what does Sandy need? Like, okay, he came back, he spoke to me. Okay, it might have taken, are you okay that it took him that long? In the future, if you continue this friendship, or are you okay? Are you accepting of it? Like maybe you're okay with it. Maybe it feels like it took him a long time, but you were able to respect his need and you didn't have a need, and so it's okay. You know, if you want to understand, you can say it as long as you say it with love and kindness, it's kind of like, wow, that I'm glad that you came, you were able to come back. It took you 2 months to, like, okay, like, well, good for you that you were able to do it. I guess it's also like, what's the reason behind the question? And for you to be clear, why are you asking the question? Are you blaming him? Like in that, is it because you secretly think like, that took you too long, like I had a need. And so you want to think, well, why am I gonna say this to this person? Is it because I'm judgmental? Is it because I'm like sticking it to them? Or am I curious? So you want to, you want to think about that. You want to think, how am I feeling before I ask the question? What's the purpose of the question? What am I hoping to gain from that question? Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, he did explain what was the issue, what was going on. But
it's about you. It's about what's your need, right? Like, what's your
Right.
need? You like, if you're gonna like for you, depending on the type of relationship, you think about like, what's my am I upset about this? And if you are upset, what's underneath the upset? And then you process it that way. But if you think about your need, and maybe you do have a need to know, like, I don't know, and you explain, I'm just gonna make this up, okay, Sandy, I'm just making this up. So let's say you're like, that's felt to you like it took so long and you're wondering if maybe, you're the type of person that needs to talk about it right away. And so you might say, wow, this was not comfortable for me waiting 2 months because I'm the type of person that usually talks about things immediately. So I guess I'm just gonna like share with you that I feel like, wow, like I'm glad you eventually came to me, but for me, the 2 months just felt like a long time, and I just want you to know that. And just share. Maybe you have a need to just share that, like, you were happy that he finally came back, but that for you it was, and in the future perhaps maybe he can do it quicker, or you want to understand what happens for him. As long as you go there in love and kindness in your delivery, and be careful, because sometimes what we want to do is, it's like we want to attack and say, what the heck took you so long? So we want to, because then we're into the blame and game and shame, and that's not useful, because that's only going to get you into a fight. So that's why I say, think it starts with you.
I want to understand like how when he gets upset, how long of a
Yeah.
type of, thing, like how long do you calm down? Like why does it take so long?
And so hopefully it's also about like him not being so upset, right? Not just decreasing the time, but it's, you can ask him, you can just say, for me, that seemed like a long time. Is that usually when you get upset? Does it usually take you that long? Or was it because you were so upset? And then, but again, it's got to be brought to him with love and kindness. Otherwise, it could sound like an attack. And if he seems to react instead of respond, you might say, what did you hear me say? And then he's, well, I heard you just blaming me for taking so long. And it's like, no. That's not what I meant. And to clarify the purpose of why you're asking. Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't talk like that. We don't talk like that.
Right.
Which is good.
But then you don't, but then if you're going to ask him like why he took so long, be careful, because you know him, I don't know him, all right, without knowing him, is that, will he be okay with that question? So, and again, just ask yourself, why are you asking that question? Why do you want to know that? Is it just because you want to point the finger? Like, what took you so long? Or is it that, gee, for me, if this friendship's going to continue, I can't be silent for 2 months. Like, that just doesn't work for me. And can we figure something else out? In whatever language you use. Yeah, I have a therapy language. I don't expect everybody to be a therapist in their relationships, but there's a fine medium of just saying, wow, and again, I think what's important, if the biggest takeaway, if anything, is just to stop, to think about what you're feeling, name it, and then make a plan that makes sense. And if you go to it, my thing is, if you go to it with love and kindness, however you say it, you could say F you with love and kindness, and someone goes, oh, thank you so much, right? And you can say, I love you, but you could say it like you're saying F you, And the person's going to put, I'm saying I love you. Well, no, it doesn't sound, the tone doesn't sound like that. And you can literally say F you to somebody with a beautiful, loving tone, and they'll be like, oh my God, I love you too. And you're thinking, I just said F you. You know, like, what? What is the person doing? But it's delivery. It's all in the delivery. Sometimes it's in the delivery. Earl, you look like you were just laughing. So I didn't hear the laugh, but I just caught you moving around. So I guess that's resonating for you.
Definitely.
Okay, Marie, did you want to say anything? I'm sorry, I'm not putting anybody on the spot. We heard a little bit from Sean, a little bit from Sandy, a little bit from Earl. I'm not sure if Marie's still there. Maybe she does want to say something. I don't want to put you on the spot. So if you don't, that's fine too. The way to talk would be to unmute.
Yeah, no, I'm listening. I think everything you said is very beneficial. I'm trying to work on not reacting. And I took notes while you were explaining rain and think and snap.
Look, I have them. I will email you a document that has it all there.
But snap definitely resonated with me because I think that makes the most sense. But I think in a heated moment, I'm not going to stop myself. I try to stop and think before I speak because once I put it out there, I can't take it back.
Right.
And that frightens me more. So I just have to kind of control it a little before I actually deliver it.
Right.
I'm usually very kind and nice when I deliver my messages, but I just have to stop and think and not react, respond, not react.
Right.
And instinctively, I do want to react because I guess under the circumstances and what's going on in society, it's hard to have patience with people, especially coworkers,
Yeah.
in professional life. So
yeah, and again, it's, you know, if you do, that's great, and I admire what you're doing, and if you just stop for a minute and then just really, like, you know, name your feelings and just figure out what am I actually, and then what do I need, right? So it becomes about you, like, what do I need? And then it becomes, how am I going to get it? Because those two people this morning, when they were screaming at each other, they were guaranteeing themselves to not get their needs met. And that's the thing, and that's why, like with Sandy, what you just said, why I pushed you a little bit was like, well, you have the need to ask, but what is the need? What is the need that you have? What are you trying to get? Because too often we, first of all, don't know what we really need, right? Because we're busy reacting. And even within ourselves, even if we don't react out there, we might be reacting with ourselves. And that's why we have to stop and say, wait, what's happening? What am I feeling? Okay, you name it, you go into need. All right, so now what do I need? Do I need this person to do something? Do I need to know that this person took 2 months before they could talk to me again? Not because of the way they feel about me, because I'm feeling rejected, but because that's just, they were so hurt that they needed that. You know, do I need clarification? Do I need them to do something? Do I actually, like, I'm really angry that this coworker is not, I feel like, I'm just making this up, I feel like I'm being left. And it's funny because this is true not only at work, but with chores. I think the number one argument that I read that research has shown that where people are fighting about all over are dishes. And I don't know if you live alone, you fight with yourself about the dishes, but if you live with other people, it's like, whose turn is it to do the dishes? And with my own daughter, I was like fighting with her. You're not doing the dishes quick enough. You're not doing your job well enough, you know? And it's like, okay, so wait, what do I need? And why do I need that? And so am I feeling at work like I'm doing everything and nobody's doing their part? So then it's like, okay, well, wait, what is my responsibility and what is their responsibility? And so can I go to them and say, you know, this is my understanding of who's supposed to be doing what, but my understanding is I'm supposed to be, you know, carrying the blue cards, and I thought that you were going to be doing the yellow cards. And so, but I find that the yellow cards are like mixed in with the blue cards and they're not being done, and I have to carry them too. So what was your understanding? Like, is your understanding that you're responsible for the yellow cards? And because you might be getting angry like, oh my God, I have to carry not only my blue ones, but the yellow ones. And they're supposed to be, but maybe they don't even know that that's their job. So maybe it's when you realize, oh wait, I'm angry because I feel like I'm doing their job, right? You just named it. What do you need? I need them to do their job. Okay, well, do they know that's their job? So maybe then the plan is, how am I going to get them to do their job? Well, one, I need to make sure they understand what their job is. So you might have a conversation of, you know, I just want to share with you what my understanding is. My understanding is I do the blue cards and your responsibility was the yellow cards. Is that your responsibility? And maybe they go, oh, yes, it is, but I've been too busy doing the pink ones and, you know, blah, blah, blah. So, or maybe they go, no, 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 that was not my responsibility. Nobody told me I had to do the yellow ones. I thought you were doing the blues and the yellows. And then you're like, well, that's really not. So let's get this clarified. So do you see how does that help, Maureen? I don't know if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It does. I just have to, I have to speak up too. I have to take ownership and say what I mean what I say, and deliver the message to the party.
Right.
So I have to work up the nerve to do that. Maybe in writing, maybe an email would be easier.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, you know, an email is because then the tone can't, well, sometimes it can be misinterpreted and sometimes it won't be. But you get to read it. See, what's great about writing is that you can read it before you send it. And one of the things that I recommend, if you're going to do something in writing, is write the letter first to the email that you'll never send, just to get your stuff out. So write the angry email that's like all the things you would never say to them. You get that out of your system. Now write the one that you could send, and maybe just have anybody, just even somebody that doesn't know the situation, just read it, because sometimes we don't know how we're coming off. So just get like a neutral person to just read it and then say, oh, okay, send it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, any other comments or questions? So do you like the acronym SNAP? Does that work? I see, I can't see you, but I think she liked it before, and Sandy. Sean?
Yes, I love it.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Right. Okay. So everyone, anybody want to say anything else about what's going on in their world? Or you feel free to send topics for next week too.
I want to yell at you just to see how you deal with it.
Oh, that's such a Sean response. And I say response because that was just very, you weren't reacting, you were responding. You said it purposefully. And I wish everyone a really good week. And I know this is really trying times and we're all being challenged. And hopefully the acronym SNAP will remind us to kind of take a moment to stop, to just see what's happening with ourselves, to name it, to accept it, and to come up with a plan and identify what we need, and to come up with a very good plan to get our needs met. And so on that note, I thank you all, and I'll see you next time. Bye.